Here's a way to get twice as much done, but doing it in the same amount of time. It's called the 50% rule, and I go into it right now.
This is definitely one of my biggest aha moments when I started doing this about 15 years ago, which is the saying, and I wish I could credit the person who originally said it, which is email is a to-do list that other people make for you, right? So if you are checking your email, it's everybody else's priority. If you are always being interrupted by employees, it's always going to be something tactical. Strategic things don't interrupt you. So if you're interrupt driven, that means that all you are doing is reacting. You are reacting to other people's priorities. You're reacting to a crisis that might not be a crisis for you, even if it's a crisis for somebody else. So the defensive line is the concept that you have to put in place blockers to not let all of those things through. And you have to be very proactive. And this goes back to the discipline aspect. Your calendar is the source of truth. The calendar says what you should be doing during the day. And if your calendar says you should be focused on something strategic and all of a sudden someone can run in with their hair on fire and derail your entire day, how far do you think you're going to get? The context switching time alone in your brain is going to make that impossible. So you have to move from being interrupt driven to being, having some fortification around you so that you have defined times when you can help your staff. Very important. When you can do that training, when you can communicate, but you have to do it in very, very defined time slots. Otherwise, you're never going to make progress. So you asked for examples. I worked with somebody who ran a smallish business, about $2.5 million in revenue in Virginia. And he was it was a services style business. And he was constantly getting interrupted by the front desk person who was taking calls and would patch all the calls directly through to him. Every time an employee had a problem, it's like, well, how should we handle this? Like, what do the slides need to look like? They just walk into his office. And I told him, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go and for 1 month, you're going to rent an office somewhere else. You're just going to get a monthly rental somewhere else. So no one can walk in on you. And then you're going to have office hours where you show up at the building and everyone knows when you're there. And those are the times they have to batch their questions, and you only answer questions in those time slots. And then you're only going to check email at the end of the day, and it's going to be sorted by your assistant. And he said it was night and day. It trained people at the company to learn how to deal with their own problems instead of coming to him every single time, right? It's kind of like, Dad, this is broken. Can you fix it? Dad, this is broken. Can you fix it? It's like, no, tell you what, I'm going to tell you how to change the batteries, and next time you're going to change the batteries. And it's the same as teaching kids. But until you empower them with the understanding that they have to try it first, and that it's okay to screw up as long as they had a good reason for why it happened, and build that culture, you will never be free. And your company will be worth much, much less. Because if you're the person who's always saving the day, there is no company. There is just you. And you are not sellable as a company. They kind of outlawed that whole slavery thing. So can't sell yourself. Therefore, you're not going to get any value for the company. And you write down everything that you're doing for 2 weeks. And I bet you that more than half of it is shit that just doesn't matter. And you just start crossing things off. And once you start doing that, you just have to make sure that you don't fill that time with other stuff that doesn't matter. And if you're in crisis mode, for instance, if you're always running around with your hair on fire and you're in crisis mode, you're probably, a lot of these businesses are doing things they don't even need to be doing, right? So the owner is supervising someone writing blog articles that get posted once a week. And they don't realize that their blog traffic is 15 people a month. Okay, there's no point in this activity. You can always start doing it later, but there's no point in this activity. Stop spending money, stop spending time, and just cross that off your list. And now you know that you've recovered X hours per week, and you're going to dedicate that to getting out of the freaking office and quarantining yourself somewhere where you can actually make progress on the business. And you repetitively do this. Now you've got all the things that are useless and you don't need now. The next thing is the things that are still useful but are low value, which you should be delegating. So that is, go get yourself an assistant. and make sure that they are doing those things and they're training. It's going to take a little bit of work, but you are consistently clearing your calendar. My goal with my assistant every week, the way that I work with my assistant is my week in advance is locked in exactly what I'm doing to the hour every single day of the week. And at the end of the week, we compare, well, what did I get done in those slots? And my goal is if I don't have at least 50% of my time on strategic focus activities, I've failed. So that's a minimum of 20-ish hours a week on that. And I consistently hit that or more because I find ways to trade things that are, nicky-knack comms time for more focus time. So what does that do? That also gives me some additional buffer that if I'm needed for my family, kid sick, whatever, I have some give in there. My calendar's locked in, but I'm not locked in with a bunch of phone calls babysitting other people. Those are all, Monday is meeting day. And I get 90% of my meetings out on Monday. Other days, I'm creating in one way or another.
If you do this, you are going to free up at least 20 hours a week of time to move your business forward. The next thing, what actually should you do strategically to get your business sold? For that, let's look at this video.